The White Revolution, Iran, 1963. The revolution was a clash between Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and Ruhollah Khomeini, which highlighted underlying cultural values and forecasted the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Background: the Revolution of 1953. Pahlavi versus Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The revolution, or coup, was a clash of Cold War politics. Mossadegh was interested in joining the Third Force faction. This was a neutral position that rejected the either-or politics of Soviets and Americans. However, Dwight Eisenhower, according to Zachary Karabel's Architects of Intervention, wanted to preserve, quote, the status quo of an Iran in the Western sphere. Consequently, Eisenhower pushed for American intervention. This culminated in a coup where Generals Fazlollah Zahedi acquired power. His reign was short, and soon after, the Shah was reinstated. The White Revolution of 1963, a sweeping program that would revolutionize and modernize the country. In particular, the revolution focused upon land reform, the nationalization of forests, and the sale of state-owned enterprises to the private sector, which points to a Western influence through the alliance with the United States. The revolution also incorporated a profit-sharing plan for industrial workers and the establishment of a literacy corps to eradicate rural illiteracy. Classifying the revolution. Given the emphasis upon national transformation and westernization, the White Revolution can be classified as a modernization revolution. According to James DeFranzo, modernization theory, quote, holds that the experience of technological and economic change tends to mobilize new or previously apathetic groups. During the White Revolution, the Shah attempted to bring Iran into the modern era, especially by incorporating the peasantry into a new governmental system. This emphasis upon modernity also provides insight into why Eisenhower would have welcomed a coup that supported the Shah rather than Mossadegh. Profit, education, and democratization seem to indicate a Western, particularly American influence, rather than a Soviet-style communist state. With the White Revolution, Iran could actively participate in the modern world. Breaking down the revolution. The White Revolution encompassed a variety of reform programs, but we are going to focus on two in particular: land reform, the most extensive, and women's rights, the most threatening. Land reform. Although land reform is often associated with communism, during the White Revolution, it was a means to break down the feudal system of government, providing power and a voice to the peasantry. The Shah also hoped that these peasants would be more supportive of his regime. Land reform was a two-stage operation. In stage 1, the land holdings of over one village were transferred to the government for resale to peasants. These peasants would have tenure as the landlord's share was reduced by 10% in dry areas and 5% in irrigated areas. Stage 2, which would commence in 1964, focused upon landowners who owned less than a village. After redividing the land, landowners retained 30 to 150 hectares of land. However, like many agrarian reform programs, actual implementation was less successful. Women's rights. The revolution hoped to transform gendered social politics. Programs and legislation to benefit women included suffrage, increased legal marriage age to 18, and improved legal rights in custody and divorce. These reforms were particularly unsettling to the clergy opposition. The emergence of a counter-revolution. The White Revolution was not overwhelmingly supported by the Iranian population. Discontent led to the emergence of a counter-revolutionary movement spearheaded and inspired by Ruhollah Khomeini. There were three cornerstones of counter-revolution. 1. Anti-Americanism, denouncing the Shah's connections to the American government and what appeared to be a reliance upon Western ideas and forced Westernization. 2. Iranian nationalism, celebrating a unique Iranian national identity that transcended Cold War ties and looked forward to a post-colonial future. And 3. Religion, incorporating Islam into counter-revolutionary society and government. Khomeini's 1963 speech captured this spirit of counter-revolution. Quote, "And those who have filled foreign banks with the wealth produced by our poverty-stricken people, who have built towering palaces but will still not leave the people in peace, wishing to fill their pockets, are they not parasites? Let the world judge. Let the nation judge who the parasites are. Let me give you some advice, Mr. Shah. Don't you know that if one day some uproar occurs and the tables are turned, none of those people around you will be your friends? They are friends of the dollar. They have no religion, no loyalty. They are hanging responsibility for everything around your miserable neck." June 5th, the Khordad Uprising, a consequence of revolution and reform. The uprising is considered the birth of the Islamic Republic. There has been some speculation that the uprising was a possible coup, perhaps even supported by John F. Kennedy. But this is difficult to corroborate. Before the uprising, Khomeini was arrested for his vocal opposition to the White Revolution. In response, thousands protested his arrest, demonstrating throughout the streets. There was a mass crackdown which brutally silenced the uprising. Khomeini was released soon after, but exiled in 1964. The aftermath. Khomeini was exiled to Turkey, but eventually moved to Najaf, Iraq. During his exile, Khomeini prepared for his return to Iran. He encouraged active participation of the clergy, recruited leftist anti-Shah groups, incorporated Iranian student organizations, and widely distributed writings and audio tapes. Meanwhile, in Iran, during the 1970s, the oil boom had created a wealth of social problems. There was major discontent with the Shah's government policies. Khomeini finally returned as the Imam during the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Reclassification: a revolution within revolution. The White Revolution was an attempt at a more Western-style modernization. However, counter-revolutionary opposition fostered and prepared for the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Consequently, this period of Iranian history consisted of two revolutions. Khomeini's rise to power and focus upon the reassertion of Islamic Iranian nationalism can be classified as a frustration, aggression, theocratic revolution. Framing revolution within the context of revitalized religiosity, Khomeini hoped to retake Iran and reverse the Westernization process imposed by the United States. Conclusion and significance. The Shah's attempts at a more Western-style reform, clearly influenced by his ties with the United States, created disconnect with the religious populations within Iran. The White Revolution of 1963 thus prepared for the revolution in 1979, which created the Islamic theocracy that we are most familiar with today.